Welcome to the Blue Oasis podcast. This is the podcast for finding peace and prosperity, learning the history of hobbies, as well as developing a little side hustle. If you want to find peace and prosperity in your life, this is your show. Get ready. You're listening to the Blue Oasis podcast. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. All right, let's get to the show. Okay, and welcome back to the Blue Oasis podcast. I am your host, Adam Rothstein. With me today is Dave Combs. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing terrific. So I'm glad you are on. So how did you get your start in music?
Well, I guess I was born into it. I was born into a family that loved music. My mother and father both played the piano. My grandmother Combs, she was born in 1894, and she was an excellent musician. She played the piano and the pump organ by ear. She didn't read music, but she could sure play the old pump organ, and she also loved to play an instrument called the auto harp. It's a stringed instrument that just really sounds good, and you can accompany yourself. And so I grew up in a music family and have been around music all my entire life. Although I did not write my first song until I was 34 years old. Rachel's song that I wrote was in 1981, and I was 34 years old before I really realized that, hey, I could write music myself.
And it's also and Gary Vee didn't put out his first piece of content until he was in his 30s, but it's the getting started part that just makes the ultimate difference in one's life.
Yeah, you look back on your life and you see certain things that happened, or there were intersections of events, and you think, wow, if I hadn't have been there at that particular time and met that particular person and did this particular thing, I would never have gone down this particular route of my career. And so there are those kind of intersecting events. Some of them are what we call defining moments that define where you are, and then there are threshold moments that I call, and threshold moments are ones where you come up to a decision point. And you have to decide, am I going to go left or am I going to go right? And so those are thresholds. Am I going to go through this door, or am I going to say, no, I'm not interested? And so those are threshold moments. And then the third category of moments that I like to talk about are what I call aha moments. Those are those big moments that come along not very frequently, but when they do, it's one of those where the light bulb goes on and you say, oh, aha, I get it now. I know what I need to do, or this thing could not have been an accident. I'm going this way. So that's kind of how I slice out the different moments and directions in your life. And so my life really changed when I wrote Rachel's song, and because I had a career of technology. I was a computer programmer to start with, and then in management and technology with AT&T, Western Electric, and that was my life during the day, but music was always part of my life in the evenings, weekends, because I was around music at home and at church and family and so forth. So music's always been a big part of me.
And have you ever thought about monetizing it? Ever producing a CD or a cassette back in the 80s?
Well, I had not originally planned to do that, but once I wrote Rachel's song and saw the reception that it got when it got recorded and played on the radio, and thousands of people were clamoring for the music, and I didn't have any way to sell it to them, that's when I had to create an album of music. And back then, it was the beginning of a CD. Prior to that, it was cassette tapes. But I did a whole album, and by 1988, I had my first album of Rachel's song. In fact, this is the album. It has the first 7 songs that I ever wrote on it, and it's just called Rachel's Song. And that was when I decided that, I have my MBA. I'm also a business person, so I appreciate business models and being able to monetize things and turn a hobby into a career kind of progression thing. And so I saw immediately the commercial value of my music by the fact that so many people wanted it. Well, that's kind of the definition of a business, right? When you have something that people want, especially if they're willing to pay for it. And so I created my albums and started down the path of figuring out how can I sell my music to people that want to buy it. And that's the story of how I built my sales channel of selling my music, not in record stores or big commercial department stores or anything like that, but through individual gift shops. You're probably familiar with these little tourist towns. When you walk into the town, you go in all these great little shops, and you go in and smells good. They've got, scented candles burning. There's pretty music playing in the background. Everything looks good, smells good, and sounds good. So I found that was the environment that needed to play my music, and consequently, all the customers in the shop would be drawn to the music and want to buy it and take it home with them. And I ended up with over 1,000 gift shops across the United States that played and sold my music to their customers. And that's when I was able to turn my hobby or my music avocation into a vocation and quit my job at AT&T and do music full time. That was in 1992. I remember the day it happened. I met my boss at lunch and said, okay, here's my resignation letter, and I've been talking about my music part-time, and now I want to do it full-time. So from now on, I'm working for myself.
I wasn't even born in 1992. I think that should tell you a little bit about my age.
Well, that's all right.
I'm a part of the Nomad Network. That's Jason Stapleton's network. And, he's talked about this the entire time of just controlling the source of your income and getting things and making some money out of your hobby and getting a side hustle going. When you first began, how did you advertise? So you sorry, a little nervous here. So you bought advertising space in the gift shops of these museums and tourist towns.
Well, no, not exactly. I really have never bought, except for one exception, and that's another whole story. I have never really purchased advertising. The gift shops were playing music. Many of them were playing music anyway, and they weren't selling it. Now, this is back in the mid-'80s, late 80s. And so the phenomenon now where you go in any kind of a store, there's almost whatever music's playing, they have a kiosk with the music for sale. Like in Cracker Barrel or wherever you are, there's music for sale. Back then, that was not the case. And so I would go in and simply approach the owner of the gift shop as being a business person and ask them a simple question was, do people ever ask you about the music you play in your shop? Do they ever say, I'd like to buy that and take it home with me? And often, even those that did not sell music yet would say, well, yeah, now that you mention it, that does happen a lot. And I said, well, I'd be happy to sell you some of my CDs and cassette tapes back then at wholesale, and you can make a good profit on them, because I think they almost doubled the money. They made more money on them than I did on a per unit basis. So I said, I'll sell them to you at wholesale, and you play the music. And when they ask for the album, just have it in a basket right by the cash register and just say, well, sure, right here's that album. Here, I'll add that to your ticket and take it home. Well, that worked. That really did work. It wasn't a flashy, big display of my music or anything. It was simply what sold it was their ears. They heard it. They liked what they heard and had to take it home with them. They wanted to hear it again. And so that was the driving force for having the music for sale as an impulse item next to the cash register. And that I had over 1,000 gift shops that sold and played my music that way. And I made a very good living doing that. And I was one of the first few people in the country to recognize that as a sales channel for music. Now they call it the play and sell market. Well, me and about 2 other musicians invented that sales channel back in the 80s. And then everybody else, the big guys, discovered the success of my channel and started doing it too. But I was already there, so I had a jump start on them.
Yeah, 100%. Now, today, you have iTunes, you have Spotify, you have those little samples of 1 minute. I've produced several audiobooks, and you have to give that little sample for your potential audience to pick it up.
Yeah, I did an audio on my book, Touched by the Music. I recorded the audio track for all of that. I was spent about 30 hours, I guess, here in my studio recording the audio, and it's about an 8-hour recording for the entire book. But I did the narration myself, so I'm very familiar with all of the specs that you got to be within for the levels of the sound and running it through the ACX laboratory testing. And you won't believe this, but a lot of people have had a lot of trouble getting their audio approved by ACX. I ran all of mine through their thing chapter by chapter, and I kept my levels just right. I'm in a soundproof room. The background noise level is very low. And so I ran it through, and they accepted my audio book first time through. No errors, no suggestions for any change whatsoever.
I have produced several audiobooks through ACX, and the first time getting Growing the Game, which was my first audiobook about baseball, I was struggling. It's like, oh my God, why is this so hard? And it was, and now I have like the ACX tool installed in Audacity. I even made a YouTube video about this, which got over 200 views. And I'm like, yes, someone's actually picking it up too, because it was very frustrating. And from there, I actually put a PDF on PDF sign up for my email list to actually help newer clients get their audiobooks approved on ACX. So very simple PDF, ready to go.
Well, I had a lot of experience in the studio, obviously. I have 15 albums of music. I've recorded over 170 songs. So I've spent many hours and days and weeks in a recording studio. So I know all about the levels and the EQ and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of second nature. And I knew what ACX was looking for, and I knew how to stay within their specs. And for example, I went back through with the editor anytime I saw a lip pop, even on the recording, where as soon as you open your lips, if you have a sensitive microphone, that little pop of the separation of your lips will show up on the recording. I went through and deleted all those out, so it was as clean as it could be.
I call that the P pop, like with Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah,
like that's the main standard. And if there's a little hiccup in the segment, like I'll see it, and then I just come from the side of the microphone and then say Pittsburgh Pirates, and it sounds a little different. So Skillshare.com is definitely a good resource as well. Have you been on Skillshare.com as well?
I don't think so. I don't believe I have. I did a whole lot of, I may have, because before I did my audiobook, I went on YouTube and I looked at all the how-tos that I could find on, make sure I knew how to do it right.
Skillshare.com is a great resource as well. Have you ever taught anyone how to play the piano?
Let's see. Have I taught anyone? Not that I can recall. I've had several people that I've tried to steer them away from where they were headed with their lessons on piano, because there's two kinds of music teachers that I have found, and there are, I guess, two kinds of students. And if you get a mismatch on those, it's not good. The student that wants to learn the classical playing, how to play a piano by the music, and that's it. There are teachers, many teachers, that's what they teach. You stay by the lesson plan in the book, and you don't deviate from it. And then there's the other student that I absolutely love to find one, and that is the kid that sits down at the piano and looks around, there's nobody watching, and he just goes and tears loose on whatever he or she wants to play on the piano. You know, they're learning chords and they're learning this, and they kind of teach themselves what sounds good. They learn chords and chord progressions, and that's how I learned. I took piano lessons and did the standard Schaum series, I think it was. I went up through, I don't know, book 5 or 6. But then beyond that, I kind of taught myself by being around other musicians and experimenting and playing, and my father played by ear, my grandmother played by ear. So I knew that was something that's what I wanted to do, was to not have to be stuck to a sheet of music. I wanted to be able to improvise and do my own thing. And so that's when you have a student that has that proclivity that says that I just want to learn how to make pretty music. I love talking to those kind of students and showing them how to learn chords and a real fast way to sound pretty good on the piano, even though you hadn't had years and years and years of lessons. But if you have a mismatch on those teachers and the students, you've got a classically trained and teacher that wants to stick by the book, and you got a student that doesn't, that's like oil and water. It's just not going to work. And oftentimes those students get ruined by the discouragement from their teacher saying, I don't want you deviating from the music. Don't do that. That's not right. Blah, blah, blah. That's not right in my mind. That discouragement of a musician from experimenting and improvising is really not good for the student. So I would, I am not a piano music teacher, but I sure can appreciate the difference in the kind of teachers and the kinds of students. And I feel pretty passionately about if you find a student that does not necessarily want to go by the book, but wants to play, I say, go play and I'll help you any way I can. I have a cousin that he wanted to do that. I had 2 copies of an old book that was written in the 1920s about chords and chord structure and all that. I mailed it to him. I said, okay, now if you promise me you will take this to heart and practice, I'll give you this book, because it really was the book that helped me. And so he said, I will do it. So I mailed him this book, and I hope that he takes it to heart and does that. So that's the 2 approaches to piano music. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I was in special ed. I was not I still managed to get a 3.5 in senior year and play hockey, but no one comes up the same way with education, whether that's music, school, or sports. We all need a different amount of times on certain things. Can you move on from this subject and go on to another one? Can you find a different approach? And there's many ways to learn information, and there's no one set way to do it in school. I certainly appreciate YouTube. It has taught me a lot, whether it's with crypto, audiobooks, how to actually film a YouTube video, and get the thumbnails right. I do see more Skillshare.com, more YouTube, more people buying actual educational software to teach people in the future. And I do see an educational revolution happening. Certainly, I've been seeing it in the business world, whether it's with Dean Graziosi, Pat Flynn, or my mentor, Jason Stapleton. So it's definitely been quite an excitement.
Well, it is totally amazing the amount of instruction and information that you can get for free off of YouTube and the other social media these days, because you can learn how to do just about anything and watch the best people in the world at it. I'm not a great guitarist, but I love guitar music. And there's a gentleman that has a YouTube channel. His name is Rick Beato. He is a fabulous music teacher. I love his episodes. He's such a great he can hear a song and replicate it himself in just an instant. He's one of those talents that hears it and plays it, kind of thing. I love to watch him, and there's other YouTube videos that are just so entertaining and educational, and at the same time and I often wonder, I've not ventured into creating my own YouTube videos to speak of, but I've often thought about, well, I don't know, would it be useful to sit down at the piano and just spend a half an hour telling people, how I learned to play the piano and just talk about the early songs that I learned and how to learn chords and that kind of thing, to see if that would resonate with some people that were interested. I have some of my fans over the years that have bought my music. And by the way, I do have piano music books for 11 of my albums. I've transcribed the note for note. They can play exactly what's played on the album. But I had people that wrote to me, elderly people. I'm in my 60s, and I've always wanted to play the piano. I heard your Rachel song, and now I went out last week and I bought a piano. And my goal is by this time next year, I want to sit down and play Rachel's song. And so I guess, music does inspire people to regenerate their creativity, and it's never too late. It's never too late to start to create and do things. Just look at Grandma Moses, the painter. I think she was way up there before she even started painting. And there are lots of examples of folks that are in their senior years before they even started painting. Even President George W. Bush, look at his paintings. He's published painting books now, and he's discovered a gift that he probably never knew he had. So it's never too late to start.
Indeed, it's never too late to start. There is a woman who was a coder, a programmer rather, and she wanted to do a side hustle, and now she's got 500 YouTube subscribers. I'm at 118, 119, 120, and I'm like, how did she do that?
Yeah.
So, but it's the model. It's just her showing off her work and teaching people how to do it, because she's built up so much knowledge from the 80s and onward. And when you get really good at your craft, when you can show people how to do something, they will come back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's I talk a lot about, even though my main subject obviously is music and my music and my book about my music, but quite often I get the things that are in my book about how I built my music book, my music business, are applicable to any kind of entrepreneurial business, whether it's any kind of writing, sports, any creative product, or even a commercial product of some kind. There are certain principles that apply no matter what the product is. You have to, number one, have a good product. In my case, you have to have a good song, a good piece of music. And then number two, you have to find out, is it something that people really are drawn to, that other people might want to know about? And if so, then you find out, well, who are those people and where are they? You do some research to the demographics and geographics of your potential customer base. And then you figure out next, well, okay, how is the best way to reach those people? Do they do things online? Do they have to go to a physical store to get it? Or is it something visual, or just audio, or both? So you figure out how to reach your customers. And then you find out how could I implement some of those ways? And then you look and say, well, now I've tried this 5 different ways. 4 of them didn't work at all, but this one worked pretty well. So you take that model that on a small scale worked, and then you duplicate it. That is the model for building and growing a business, or turning a hobby into an income, an earning income. That's exactly what I did. I found that one little gift shop that played and sold my music, and I just duplicated the heck out of it and found and got it into over 1,000. Very simple.
And I definitely see that we're going to be going into a digital revolution. certainly with NFTs, whether it's digital art and even music too, we're going to be going into this way, and we're going to sell these albums, and you're not going to need you're it's you're almost not going to need a middleman in the
Mm-hmm.
future. How familiar are you with NFTs?
I know what non-fungible uh, uh, tokens are, but I have to confess that I've tried to read about it, but I still do not understand. Because when I see something like that, I try to think, oh, how could I apply that to my music business? I know they talk about art, physical art a lot, and somebody buys an NFT of some famous painting or some creation of a emoji or something, and they sell it for a lot of money. But I do not understand how that would apply to me and my creation of my music.
Um, there was a girl that I saw on Open Seas, and this is the blockchain for selling music, and there's an option that you can sell it as an MP3 file and then just have a little artwork with it. This I do see that competing with iTunes and Spotify in the future. And it is good to have that knowledge of coding in Ethereum, and 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 it's just another way to make money too. But I mean, I like it. I like learning about this stuff. It it is difficult to learn, whether it's the code or just the concept, but in some ways, I mean, an audiobook and even a digital file such as an MP3 file from iTunes is in a way an NFT.
That's right, because the people that purchase it are buying a perfect copy of the original because it's a digital copy. There is no difference in quality from the MP3 you download to the MP3 that I create. But the thing is that you don't buy the rights. You do not own the intellectual property to that MP3. You have the right to play it for your own enjoyment, but you don't have the right to turn around and resell it to somebody else, because that belongs to me as the copyright owner.
And with smart contracts, you can definitely limit the amount of a collection or how many pieces of the item you want to sell, and you can grant access to something as well. And you could be like, if you bought this music track, you get a special event. You get to go to the special event happening on X day or something like that.
Okay. So you tie two things together.
Yeah, it's an added bonus. The Mickey Mantle NFT was sold recently. I think it was sold for like $4,000. And to the person who bought it, actually got to have an interview with Mickey Mantle's sons, and he definitely recorded it and saved it for himself. And I'd say, like, I mean, I would have paid top dollar if I could afford it, but for that, but I can't at the moment. But hats off to the guy who did it too. Definitely something to think about for the future.
Yeah, I will. It's on my bucket list of things to stay on top of, because when iTunes came along, I jumped onto that as quick as I knew about it, and the same thing with Pandora. I loved being a technical person, I loved the business model of Pandora, where I found out that they were basically doing what they called the DNA of the music. They took a song and they analyzed it with, I think, is 200 or 300 parameters. What key is it in, what instruments are used, what tempo, and I don't know what all else. But it's basically doing a DNA, if you think of it that way, of the song. So when they finished, they had Rachel's song, the DNA, And then they did a bunch of other people's songs. And what they could do then is they could say, what songs have similar DNA to Rachel's song? And they're all, let's put them in a playlist. So when you say, all right, on Pandora, play Rachel's song by Gary Prim, and it'll play that. And the next song coming on will not necessarily be one of mine. It'll be, a Lori Line or somebody else, some other artist that has a song that is in the similar style of Rachel's song. And so that really intrigued me, because they did not weight a heavily popular artist as opposed to a song that they looked at the music, the raw music and the appeal of the music. And so I was very fortunate that my music then, if it were fortunate enough to be similar to a very popular, a Yanni or, some really popular artist that got a lot of play, then my song they play their song, and then maybe my song comes up right next. So, and it's getting thrown in a playlist that associates you with other artists that you would never otherwise have been associated with. So that was a very big positive for me, and even it still is today. And I believe that the Apple Music kind of works the same way. If you say play John Denver music, you're going to hear John Denver, but you're going to hear some other artists that sound and have the similar kind of genre of John Denver, for example. And so I like that, because it takes the exclusivity, some of the exclusivity out of the music, so that the little guy has a chance to be right alongside the big guy.
Oh, absolutely. And with United Masters, you can actually publish your own original song and have 90% royalties, and 10% goes to the guys upstairs, and get it out there too on a similar playlist like Spotify, and just that exposure can get you some royalties. I've definitely produced a course on this, and I've learned a little bit about this, and I know now, do not publish just simple audio. It actually needs to be a song too. I will disclose that when going to United Masters. But if you have the music, I will definitely recommend just give it a shot, because a few dollars is better than nothing, and just getting it out there. I mean, you definitely can have a positive effect on someone. And there was this, there's this one song called Starlight Brigade. It's more of an EDM, techno music. And I saw the animation to this music video, and I'm like, that's incredible too. Like, because we didn't, I don't know if you're familiar with the early days of YouTube. There was this one video called Chocolate Rain, and the guy was singing it, and it went viral on YouTube, and you don't know what song is going to be the next big song. I mean, look at Gangnam Style as well. Putting things out there, it's not a guaranteed, but like Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yep, that's right. Well, fortunately, I've got I've recorded over 170 songs. They're all out there on Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, every streaming media you can imagine. And I've done that mainly through the CD Baby affiliation that has helped me over the years. But the problem is that the streaming revenue is so small per play. It is, in my case, I get reports every month from my royalty checks of what's been played how many times. and some songs be played thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and it's just a few dollars of revenue. It's 0.2 for me, average 0.2 pennies, 0.2 cents per stream. That's a tiny fraction for playing a song, and it takes millions of times to play to run up any kind of significant income from the streaming.
Yeah, so you run it 2 times, that's 2 cents. You run it 10 times, that's 2 cents. 0.2 times 10 is yeah. Just move
2 cents for 10 plays.
Yeah. And then just and then just go about it. It's difficult to think about like doing decimals sometimes.
Yeah.
And you can definitely attack. Set up with United Masters, you can set up and have it delivered straight to your PayPal. When it comes to, do you have a preference of what you listen to? Just curious. Spotify, Pandora.
Either one, or Apple Music. I have my Apple Pod speakers. Upstairs. I also have a Alexa, one of those boxes that I can play, and I'll sit down at the piano and I'll have a mood and say, all right, play me some Henry Mancini music, and boom, it'll play something, or like I play John Denver, or play anybody that I can think of, that Roger Williams piano music, or if I want to hear some of the 60s kind of doo-wop music, I can pick up some of those. I love to play along with those. Those are so fun to play because the chord progression on those is always, it's a 1, 6 minor, 4, 5 chord progression on 99% of them, and so once you figure out what key they're in, you can sit on the piano and play right along with them. So, but that's I love to play really all genres. I love jazz. I cannot play jazz. I say I cannot. I'm not a very good jazz musician. I love to listen to jazz, and I love guitar music. I love piano music. I love orchestra. I love choral music. I love a cappella music. I love that TV show that was on. I forget what the name of it was. It was all the a cappella groups that sang.
Oh, Glee.
No, not Glee. That's the show. But this was a weekly program that was on television for a while. That Pentatonics came out of that. For example, they were the group that really were. They really put them on the map. But so I love all kinds of music, and I listen to lots of music.
Yeah. So, and there's never now. On the apps, learning apps, have you ever discovered a learning app that you liked for piano? Anything?
Not particularly. I've looked at a lot of those that that advertise learn to play the piano in 6 weeks or whatever, the Piano Man or the Piano Guy or whatever, and those are fine, because they're basically trying to teach the same way that I was talking about a while ago. You teach somebody how to do a C chord and an F chord and a G chord, and do that with your left hand and play a melody in your right hand, and you're playing a song. So, but I haven't really paid much attention to those, because I've been more concentrating on creating my own music and arranging and transcribing the music that I already have.
100%. Anything else you want to say before?
Well, I just want to make sure that your listeners hopefully will try to go and find my music, and go to my website, which is combsmusic.com. And I have all my music is there, and lots of them have samples that you can listen to. And when you go to my home page, you'll see on the left-hand side of the page, you'll see my book here, just like it's on to my left. And on the other side of the page, you'll see Rachel's Song CD. And so you go to either of those and you can find my book or my music. And I would sure hope that people would be encouraged to find Rachel's Song and either listen to it on streaming or
100%. Yeah, be sure to send me the links to those. I'll be sure to put them in the show notes.
Okay.
And everyone, please be sure to rate this podcast, share it everywhere, 5 stars if you think it's worth it. And I think that'll do it. Anything else, or you good?
Okay, I'm good, and I really appreciate your time, Adam. It's been a fun discussion. I hope we didn't get too technical for folks, but as you can tell, I like talking about technical things as well, so as well as my music.
100%. All right. I'll stop this, and also everyone, stay safe, stay great, and I'll talk to you all in the next episode.